All right, thank you. So we're going to start this presentation, and it's going to cover climate change action within your school.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about today is solar on school buildings and school grounds.
The second talking point today is environmental products and climate-friendly meal options.
And the last topic is climate change education within schools.
After we present these three topics, we're going to talk about how you can take action in your school and make a difference.
But first, let's start with some introductions.
So my name is Lauren Smith. I'm a senior at the Battle Creek Area Math and Science Center and Union City High School. I attended the Climate Change Symposium last year at Hastings because I'm interested in making a positive impact on the environment. When my school was given the opportunity to host this year, I was immediately excited, and I wanted to be part of bringing climate change to more students.
My name is Kaylynn Budreau. I am a junior at the Battle Creek Area Math and Science Center as well, and Pennfield High School. And when I first heard about the opportunity to help with the symposium, I was super excited, but I actually thought that it was for class and for the end of the year symposium. So when I joined the first meeting, I was super excited to become part of the committee because it wouldn't have been something that I would have regularly done, but it was just as simple as joining. And I found something that I was very passionate about. I made a lot of new friends, and I was contributing to a great cause. So right now, in the Q&A, you can go ahead and type, we have a question for you. Do you feel empowered enough to make a change? There's a little checkbox. You can click anonymous if you would like, and go ahead and tell us, how do you feel about making a change within your school? Do you think that you have enough power to change things within your school, or do you feel like, adults, people don't want to listen? We'll give you guys a couple of seconds. Alrighty, regardless if you do or if you don't feel comfortable, today we're going to give you a bunch of different topics and talk about things that you can do to help out within your school.
So a lot of you said that you didn't know where to start, so hopefully we can help clear some of that up for you. And if you don't feel empowered at all, don't worry, because what we're getting at with these introductions is that anyone can make a change. All you have to do is step outside of your comfort zone and do something unexpected. So today, let's learn about how we can make a difference and some examples of things that we can enact change within our schools. To start things off, here is a short video that we put together. This is the Battle Creek Area Math and Science Center teachers giving advice to students who want to take action on climate change.
What would you tell a student who wants to make a difference for the climate crisis?
I would tell them to find their inspiration from the people that are around them.
Keep an open mind and learn as much as you can from everybody around you.
Get involved, get knowledgeable, get information.
Get as informed as you possibly can and choose a way of getting involved.
That they should really try to get involved.
Explore the world and find things that they can really do action.
I believe they need to understand that no one person can do everything, but everybody can do something. And so as long as we are together working in a larger body of work, then you do make a difference and you can make a difference.
And they're not too young to be making a difference. And if adults aren't listening to them, then go to another adult and just don't give up.
There will never be a time in your life where you can be as influential as you are today. Don't waste it.
We hope that that video will help motivate you to think about how you can make a difference within your community and your school. Like we said before, there are many different ways that you can make a difference and enact change everywhere around you. But today we're just going to talk about a couple of things that you can do within your school. The first one that we're going to talk about today is getting solar on your schools. So I go to Pennfield schools, and a lot of people do not know, but we actually have solar panels on 2 out of 5 of our schools, possibly 3 coming up shortly. This is a picture of the solar panels that are on our high school gymnasium. Before we get into more detail, I'm gonna ask a little fun question. So again, in the Q&A, type how many solar panels you think there are on Pennfield schools.
All right, so I think the closest one, from what I can tell, is an anonymous attendee said 500 solar panels.
All right, that is pretty close, but there are actually 743 solar panels on the 2 out of 5 of our schools. So on the high school alone, there are 419 solar panels. These panels, oh my gosh, were activated back in January of 2019, and they have collected 292 megawatt hours. They generate about $120 a day, but with that said, that's summer and winter average sunlight hours because we don't get the same amount of sunlight all year round. On the elementary, there are 324 solar panels on the gym and classrooms. They've generated about 47 megawatt hours, and they make about $75 a day. So a lot of you are probably thinking, well, that's cool, your school has solar panels, but how did you get them? So for a little bit of backstory, about 3 years ago, a head of operations at Pennfield, Mr. Waterman, started looking into renewable energy for our school. As some of you may know, the state offers tax breaks or reimbursements for schools who have renewable energy. And while that's nice, a lot of schools are tax exempt, including my school and probably your school. This means that we can't take advantage of those tax breaks, which is why Mr. Waterman started looking into contractors who can take advantage of them. And he eventually found a company out of Kalamazoo called Helios Solar. So their picture is in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And they worked together to come up with a 5-year contract. And so the way this works is all maintenance is done by the contractor. The school doesn't ever touch the solar panels. If, for instance, a transformer that converts DC current to AC current breaks, the system itself sends an email to the contractor and they come out and they fix it. Other than that, the system is completely maintenance free and the school doesn't ever touch it. I don't know if any of your families have ever leased a car, but like leasing a car, the solar panels have a payment, and the payment comes directly out of the electricity created by the solar panels. So the school doesn't pay anything out of pocket until after the 5-year contract is over. After that 5-year contract is over, whatever is left on the solar panels, the school pays off. And then 100% of the money generated from the panels goes directly to the school. So why should you ask your school to make the change? Not only are the solar panels really good for the environment, but they're also good for your school. Activity funding is also a really big problem within schools, especially small schools that don't have a lot of money for other things besides school events. So your school would be able to create and use renewable energy, which is cleaner for the environment and helps reduce fossil fuels, which is the driver of anthropogenic climate change. Anthropogenic climate change is human driven. So by burning greenhouse gases and different things, we are emitting more than what is natural, and that helps drive climate change. One school at a time, we can slowly all work together to make a difference.
So when first hearing about climate change, it can be really overwhelming. The best advice I have for someone who cares about climate change and making a difference, but is too overwhelmed to take action, is to start with yourself. So analyze the actions you take every day and the larger impact you're making with the choices. A few things you can do to start making a change in your life is limiting how much you're using gas-powered cars. Think about how the products you use daily are being sourced, or change your eating habits. When you're buying products, you are making a conscious choice to buy something that can impact the environment in a good or a bad way. You're the consumer, and therefore you determine what's in demand. Many people don't know that some ingredients and items are harming the environment. For example, the $40 billion palm oil industry is notorious for wiping out rainforests, displacing indigenous peoples, spewing carbon into the atmosphere, and driving the orangutans or other animals towards extinction. Palm oil can be in things like shampoo, makeup, chocolate, soap, or even margarine. So read the labels of the things you buy and do research on the company that you're supporting to see what's going into the making of the product. Greenwashing is also something to watch out for. So when analyzing the products you buy, you should look for different things and research the company before you buy anything. This is a process, greenwashing is a process of conveying a false impression or providing misleading information about how a company's products are more environmentally sound. There are countless of industries across the country that show examples of greenwashing, and you can find those if you just do some research on the company. A lot of different motivations behind greenwashing. So by becoming educated on the types of harmful products that you may be using, you decide what companies to support, if they're using that money for fame, if they're using that money in fame for things that are good or bad. So therefore, when you're buying something, you're supporting not only the product, but the company's values. So the major way people can change their carbon footprint is through their diet. Limiting your meat consumption is a great way to fight climate change. And here's a little video talking about that.
I have to admit that when it comes to food, I'm a total sucker. Whether it's sugar or grease or carbs, pretty much bring it on. And I spend a lot of time in Montana. So for me, that medium rare grass-fed ribeye steak, pretty much as good as it gets. I know, I don't do it often. And when I do, I gotta admit, I feel a little conflicted. And that's for a lot of reasons, including the planet. But how big of a problem is what I eat? I mean, does it really make much of a dent in something as huge as global warming? But it turns out that what we put on our plates matters a lot.
About 25% of all the global climate change problems we're seeing can be attributed back to the food and the choices that we're actually making about what we eat on a daily basis. This is greater than all the cars on the planet. In fact, it's about twice as much global warming pollution as the cars.
Ben Holton and Maya Almaraz study the connection between climate and diet at the University of California, Davis. They track how the way we produce food creates greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. With that data, the team has crunched the numbers to figure out how much carbon pollution is produced by different foods and different diets.
A lot of people feel really helpless when it comes to climate change, like they can't make a difference. And what our research is showing is that your personal decisions really can have a big impact.
So take that grass-fed ribeye steak I love. If you really look at everything that went into making a single serving of beef, you end up emitting around 330 grams of carbon. That's like driving a car 3 miles. Now, if I choose to have chicken instead, there's more than a 5-fold drop in emissions. Switch to fish, and you see the number go down even more. Now, look at veggies. If I swapped beef out entirely for lentils, well, I'm down to practically nothing. So why does beef, and lamb too for that matter, pack such a powerful punch to the planet? Livestock accounts for a little over 14% of global greenhouse gas emissions. If that sort of seems low to you, consider it's about equal to transportation. We're talking all the cars, trucks, planes, trains, and ships on the planet combined. This is partly because ruminant animals like cows and sheep, they're just gassy. And the methane they produce is at least 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Plus, it takes a lot of land, fertilizer, and about 1 billion tons of grain to feed all that livestock.
And you could feed 3.5 billion people with that grain. If we were just directly eating these grains ourselves, it would eliminate a lot of the CO2 that's emitted from cattle production.
So it's clear that meat has a pretty big carbon load. But it's also worth remembering that not all livestock is raised equally. In parts of the American West, for instance, ranchers are working to raise livestock in ways that actually help restore the land. And they're experimenting with ways that soil and grasslands can be used to keep carbon pollution out of the air. But even these sustainable ranchers will really tell you we're probably eating too much meat.
I know a lot of people who, if you don't serve them meat for lunch or dinner, they're kind of like, well, when is the meat coming out?
It's to the point now where the US actually has one of the highest meat footprints per capita. So what about not eating meat at all? Vegan is the way to go for the least impact on the planet, but it's not that much different in terms of emissions than, say, a vegetarian diet. And the team found that the environmental impact of the Mediterranean diet is pretty similar to vegan and vegetarian diets. It's a lot less meat heavy than what Americans are used to. So fish and poultry a few times a week, beef maybe once a month, plenty of plant-based foods, and of course, loads of olive oil.
Eliminating like 90% of your meat intake is more important than eliminating all of your meat. We don't all have to be vegan. We don't all even have to be vegetarian. If we can just reduce our meat intake, every little bit helps. And if you can bring it down a lot, you can help the climate a lot.
If we all just switched to a Mediterranean diet, it could actually solve 15% of global warming pollution by 2050.
If everyone were to move toward it, that is equivalent to taking somewhere around 1 billion cars off of the streets in terms of vehicle emissions each year. So that kind of a footprint is big time.
But say you still want more meat than the Mediterranean diet recommends. Just cutting down your portion size to the doctor recommended 4 ounces can reduce your emissions by half. That's huge.
In fact, the doctors are telling us we're eating about twice as much meat as we really need for a healthy diet.
The good news is we are listening to our doctors. In the last decade, there's been a 19% drop in the amount of beef we eat.
All these things that you're already being told are good for you also happen to be good for the planet.
So what we eat really is a big part of the climate puzzle. I mean, we may not all be able to afford an electric car or putting solar panels on our house, but we all have to eat every day. And these choices we make can add up to really big numbers. And since meat has a pretty big carbon load, we need to be thoughtful about how much we eat. As for that ribeye steak that I really love, I am honestly trying to cut back. Maybe just a smaller piece of steak, or simply swapping out a meat dish for a veggie burger. It may seem like a small thing, but it really does add up to big impacts. Hey, so what did you have for dinner last night? Find out how your choices are affecting global warming by taking a quiz at climate.universityofcalifornia.edu, or watch one of our other episodes to discover what happened when I brought a box of donuts to MIT.
So as you can see, everyone has different reasons for vegetarianism. It could be a variety of things, but animal rights and climate change are the main ones. As you saw in the video, meat is a major contributor to climate change. The meat industry is not only unethical at times, but it is also causing an increase in greenhouse gases. That's why vegetarianism can make such a large impact. Once I became vegetarian, I wanted motivation to continue on this path. So I found an app called Quit Meat. It gives you vegetarian recipes and calculates the impact you've made since you changed your eating habits. These are my statistics on the left since I started being a vegetarian 2 years ago. After talking about this change in my life, a lot of my friends also became vegetarian. So it's a great way to spread the word about climate change and animal cruelty. I've found one of the hardest places to be vegetarian is in the cafeteria at my school. My school is fairly small, about 55 people are in my grade, so options are kind of limited for me. I know about 10 other kids that are vegan or vegetarian at my school, and if we forgot to pack our own lunch, we were kind of out of luck to find something to eat. So we decided to talk to our cafeteria workers. Eventually, after some conversation, they decided it might be best for everyone if they added a salad bar. It took only 10 students at my school to make a difference. A lot of schools around Michigan have also implemented more environmentally friendly choices, like Grand Rapids, who started using locally sourced food for better meals. It's cheaper and better for the kids to make these environmentally sound choices. Reusable dishes are also a good investment for schools. If your school doesn't have these actions already in place, then we will show you how to convince your school into taking these actions at the end of this presentation. Kaylynn, I don't think we can hear you.
Sorry. All of the actions that we've talked about today are amazing, but in order to take action, we must first be educated on climate change. This year at the Battle Creek Area Math and Science Center, we offered a course designated to only learn and talk about climate change. This was the first time it had ever been done within our school, and the course was created in collaboration with professors at University of Michigan, go Blue. Over the semester, we completed a lot of different activities, and so I put together some examples so you guys could see kind of how our semester looked. So one of the things we did was we read an IPCC synthesis report for climate change in 2014. We did these things called journal clubs, where we looked at different sections and we asked questions and worked with groups to better understand climate change and policies and stuff. We did a current event, so that is an example of a link to a current event that I did. It was about wildfires that are happening because of the climate crisis and how homeowners in California were unable to get insurance because of the wildfires. We also did a semester project. So I talked to my group, they were okay with me sharing this, but we did an analysis of emissions and improvement policies in California and New York, more specifically the city of Los Angeles and New York City, and we compared and contrasted the emissions within those cities and what they're doing to regulate the emissions and how that's changing over the years. Here's an example of just some things like a curriculum, what we did daily. I had like the day that we were on and stuff. And since we were online, Mr. Muick actually had videos that we watched and different things. Not to call him out or anything, but like and subscribe. And then that is an example of just a notes page that I had taken from some of the climate science aspects of the video. Out of all the things that we did, obviously each student had some favorites. I personally really enjoyed the climate science because growing up in middle school, we didn't learn a lot about climate change. If we did, it was about a week long and it wasn't really in depth. So this course really cleared up a lot of my misconceptions. I had originally thought that, you know, the ozone layer and climate change were the same thing. And it just cleared up a lot of my misconceptions. And now I actually have a really good understanding of how climate change works.
So my favorite thing that we did during the semester was we did an economic and climate change simulation. So it'll show the degree that the atmosphere will go up and then the greenhouse gas net emissions. And as you can see, there's little sliders. And so it will show you what will happen if you reduce coal usage or if you increase renewable energy or if you increase energy efficiency. I liked this because it showed what would happen if the policies we talked about in class were put into action. And it also showed that it's not only one thing that we have to change, because if you just put, we didn't use any coal, that wouldn't decrease climate change altogether. So we had to do a variety of different things in order to actually make an impact.
After the semester was over and we'd finished exams, Mr. Muick asked us all to take a survey on the climate change course, and some of the questions from the survey were as follows. So all the students were asked, do you think other high schools should offer a class on climate change? 100% of the students that took this quiz said yes. Do you feel this class was useful? Again, 100% of students said yes. Would you recommend this class to a friend? 97.1% of students said yes. Are you glad you took this class? 98.5% of students said yes. And lastly, were there any assignments or activities in this course that you believe were not useful? 92.6% of students said no. So as you can see from that, all of the students that took this course really valued it, and they thought that it was something that should be in more than one place. So why you should encourage your school to make the change? Well, first off, this is your education. A lot of times students say, we're not learning things that we're going to use. When are we going to use this? How is this important? But climate change is the biggest problem of our generation. We are going to be facing it. The next generations are going to be facing it. And it's important that we know and we care about how we can make an impact on our society. Secondly, by educating yourself, you can learn to help educate others. Like I said before, in middle school, this course cleared up a lot of my misconceptions. And so it's important that we all understand how climate change works and how we can take action, because that's what we're here for. Third, when people are educated, more people know how to make a difference. Like Lauren said before, climate change is such a big problem. People look at it and they think, wow, where do I start? What am I supposed to do? So if you are educated on climate change, you can understand some things and how you can help make an impact. And lastly, this class is really interesting and a lot of students are interested in taking it. You've seen in the poll that all of the students that took this course thought that other schools should have it. And this was the first year that the Math and Science Center offered this course. And I think half of the student body asked to take this class. So it was really interesting. We didn't just talk about climate science. We talked about economics and the government and policy and just a bunch of different things that should be offered in schools. And yeah, you should try and encourage your school to make the change.
So to actually implement these actions that we've talked about, we have a few steps that we thought that you should take. The first one is you should probably collect information on the action that you want to take, whether it be the solar on your schools, the meal options, or climate education. Think about what kind of information you're going to need. Do other schools around you do this already? Statistics on why it's important and why would it help your school and the environment. There's also power in numbers. So you should think about who at your school would be interested in supporting an idea like this. Get as many people involved as possible. That can be friends, teachers, staff, parents, principals, anyone and everyone you can think of, because the more people you have supporting you, the more likely you are to get these actions across and make a difference in your community. You should also create a well laid out presentation. Present the what, the why, and the how of your action. What you're trying to do, you should be really specific about what your school will need to do to put these in place, why your school should care, and how your school should go about it. If you give them a plan, it makes their jobs a lot easier and they're more likely to say yes and take on whatever you're telling them to do. You should then speak to the administration. So contact a superintendent with a teacher or a principal at your school. And then lastly, you shouldn't give up. There's a lot of politics that go into your school. So it may not be as advantageous for them to agree on your idea the first year, but the next year it might be. It always changes. So it might not work out the first, so just keep trying. So now we're going to our emails are listed on this slide. And after the symposium, we have a what's next document. It kind of goes into some more actions that you can take. And we just wanted to let you know that we will help you try and get any of these actions across, because we want to see more schools have climate education, because then more people will be educated and it'll just be better for everyone.
Like Lauren said, she did work with her school and they have meal options in their cafeteria. I'm currently working with Battle Creek Math and Science Center and Battle Creek Public on solar panels and just trying to follow in people's footsteps. Mr. Newick was able to get climate education into our school, and we know that you can do it too. So feel free to email us if you have any questions. We are definitely willing to help. And like Lauren said, all the links and stuff will be in the What's Next document. right now in the Q&A, now that this is over and you have some examples of things that you can do and how you can do them, go ahead and put in the Q&A on what you're thinking on how you feel about taking these actions within your school. Now, after this presentation, do you feel like your school would be okay with taking these actions? Like that?
And then you'll be able to open up. Cool, excellent. You can start it whenever you want. Just make sure that by 10 o'clock you are, so that way if there's a problem, we can fix it.
Mr. Newick is okay.
Sorry.
You're good. So it's good to hear some of you are more motivated to take action. Like we said before, please check out the What's Next document. That will be really useful for you and looking at different links and just into your research on how you can make an impact within your school. We've done it, you can do it too, and if you need any help, contact us.
Yeah, we had no idea what we were getting into with this symposium. We didn't know all the work that went into making a symposium, and once we got started, we kind of knew where to go. So it just really takes those first steps, and then you can do anything that you really set your mind to.
And even though, yeah, somebody said in the chat, they're reminded, even though your school may not be so totally accepting of change, like we said before, power in numbers, just working with a bunch of people that believe in what you believe in and are passionate about the same things you are will get you to where you want to be. What would you two say is a good step, first step momentum action that the students and teachers can do here? What would you say is a good start? Well, it depends on what you want to do. So if you're thinking about getting climate education into your schools, the first step I think is to take research on, who is having a climate education, what teacher is willing to teach. Are there teachers at your school that have the certification and stuff to do this? And then how are you going to approach it? We gave the 4 different things. You got to collect your information. After you do that, power in numbers, just work with different people, and then you can create your presentation, and you kind of just have to go for it. So
I also think one of the best things we've realized this year is with our committee, we had a group of people to talk to. So if you get a group of people who are as passionate as you are, you can really see what you can do, and it motivates you to make a difference in your school.